Hello, everybody out there in the internets, whether you're coming to us from Twitter, YouTube, wherever you're at. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Fighting. Yeah, I can't talk. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm sorry. We're off to a great start. Anyway,
we're live.
Yes, when we're live. All right, that's fantastic. So we are live with another episode of Fighting the Void, where we talk about whatever the hell it is we feel like talking about on a given night. And tonight we're going to be talking about identity politics a little bit, something that we've only really touched on a little bit on this show, I believe. And
on and off.
On and off. And with me tonight is, of course, my wonderful and lovely co-host, Crystal.
Hello.
Yay.
And back again, coming to us on short notice because, as you notice, it's not Faith who's in the middle there. It's not Faith Moore. It's Red coming back, another longtime friend of the show, stepping up to fill the void, as one might say.
Yes. So happy to have you on again, Red.
Thank you. And for the people who heard what my trolling thing was going to be, I couldn't get video to work, so we're going to have to figure out another troll date because it just didn't go.
Oh, trolling thing. Okay, before we get into it, you've got to elaborate on this.
They know, the ones I'm talking to. I got a MAGA hat, and because I got a MAGA hat today, and because it was identity politics, I was going to, because I knew the way you start your show is where Crystal and I and you, we have a conversation before we actually go live. So I was just going to be all normal. And then like when we started, I was going to say something stupid like, well, hold on, let me go. I got to grab something. I'm not really comfortable. And they come back with the MAGA hat on. I thought it would be hilarious, but it
would have been hilarious, but alas.
I know.
We're just going to have to do that another time.
Yeah.
Well, we can't now. I just said it. You made me say it.
Oh, don't give me a break. You know how many kids I have. I will forget.
Now, well, see, you can still do it. Just now you have to do it instead of at the beginning. You just have to do it at a random time of the show, like in the middle of then you're talking, and then you just slowly start putting it on, and then just we'll take bets on how long it takes the Ginger to notice.
That's fair. Yeah, why not? Or just blurt out something absolutely ridiculous. Just something over the top, something that could be one of Trump's tweets, and throw that sucker on. And
I could edit it. It's just the censored blob of red on top of red.
Let's all know now we're not supposed to wear red hats because that scares people.
It's scary.
It's very scary.
Red is scary.
Terrifying, even. I mean, red is terrifying.
I'm not scary. Shut up. I'm not scary.
Yes. Okay. I'm willing to bet there's at least a couple people that might differ, but
yeah.
Anyway.
Anywho's.
Yes. So anyway, what prompted this what prompted the topic was I was listening to another podcast that Red was on earlier in the week. Charlie Venzel, if I've got the name right. In fact, and you can follow him over at Charlie Venzel on Twitter and find his podcast and everything over there. And anyway, Red, you were on his show and I was listening to it. Towards the end of the interview, you guys started talking about just a little bit about identity politics. And I thought you brought up something interesting. If you would care to elaborate for the folks at home.
You want me to say what it was? Sure. Well, when I coached freestyle gymnastics, I happened to see kids playing together. I had Barbies, and the only reason I bring up race is because it's kind of important. What I'm saying. The one little girl was black, and the other one was white, and it occurred to me because the little girl had Barbies, and the other little girl was just similar. Well, I think the little girl cared too much, but at the same time, all the Barbies were white.
Red, you are roboting all over. Red, you're roboting hard.
All right, I'm gonna have to go outside. Damn it! This always happens. See? All right, give me 1 second. Can you hear me any better?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You sound great now.
Oh, well, of course. I'm not comfortable where I'm at. So yeah. How much?
Oh,
How much of what I said did you actually hear?
I think we could. I think I could at least understand up until where you're talking about the two girls playing with the Barbies.
Yeah.
Okay, well, all the Barbies were white, and it got me thinking, like, what would it be like, especially as a kid? You know, we always kind of want to play with things that look like us, remind us of ourselves. And then I'm like, all these Barbies were white. Like, if I was a black little girl, like, I think I would want a black Barbie to play with.
Mm-hmm.
And it got me to thinking, maybe there is, I don't know, maybe there's something to identity politics, not to the extent that they do it now, but got to be something to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and you know, when you were talking about that, it reminded me of a news story I saw years ago, and they were talking about you know, campus culture, and it was about how, you know, people were self-segregating essentially, not that there was no policy or anything enforcing it. It's just people were very concerned that all the Asian kids were sitting with the Asian kids, the white kids are normally sitting with the white kids, the black kids with the black kids, and you know, Hispanic kids with Hispanic kids, that sort of thing, you know, and not a ton of integration happening amongst them, and people, there was apparently some set of people that were very exercised about this, and like, that's what people are doing. People want to hang out with people that are at least superficially like themselves, or people who might have similar culture experience, whatever. And I'm like, let them do their thing, man. Shut up. But you know, it does, I think, kind of illustrate exactly the point that you're making. It's like, you know what? People really do naturally gravitate towards things that they see as like themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as I think you both know, there's a whole collection of gingers on Twitter that seem to like interact with each other. It's interesting. We have clustered.
Yeah. The gingers are meeting up and plotting. And I mean they're just getting to know each other because
Yeah, we're totally not trying to reach a critical mass and create a black hole that will suck in all the souls on the planet.
Oh my God.
Not the plan at all. Anyway. So that, I don't know, it's just, there really is something naturally to that. And yeah, I guess I can kind of see where if you know, you're looking at all the movies and everything and you're like, you know what, why isn't there, you know, this or that, except a lot of times there are. Crystal, you were making the point earlier about how, like, I don't know, a few years ago, all of this representation, everything existed. Just no one made a big deal about it. It just it happened.
Yeah, because like, and granted, I probably had a different growing up experience than either you two did, but it's like for me growing up, I
She called us old, Red.
I know. We'll fight her later.
I had different experiences, okay? But it's like, you know, for me growing up, and I guess this kind of influences why I get really irritated with the whole identity politics, because for me it's like, why are you pointing out? Because for me growing up, I was exposed to lots of things that were different, and it wasn't pointed out to me, and it's like I knew it was different, but it's like it was fine with it because it was normal. And the example I used before the show was, growing up, I watched a show called Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, and one of the characters in the show is this big purple monster called Eduardo, and a lot of his dialogue is mixed in with Spanish. It's granted there's a lot of English because it's an American show, but he had a lot of Spanish put into his dialogue when he was talking about things or explaining about things and whatnot. And for me, it's like, I even forgot that was part of the show till rewatching it, but it's like growing up, I didn't even bat an eye on it because it's like, oh, it's a Spanish character. It's like, you know, it's like I could tell he was different, but it's like it wasn't a big deal. He was different. And I guess too, and I think I might have mentioned this on the podcast before, I was used to not having things like me around me because like I was like by the 7th grade I was the only white kid in my grade. Like like I was one of the only white people around. So it's like for me it's like having different things isn't a big deal. Being surrounded and exposed to different, you know, races and religions and whatnot is no big deal. That's what I do. So when identity politics calls so much attention to it, I'm like, what's the matter?
Right. Because again, it has been blown way out of proportion.
Yeah, but then I think about like what Red said with, you know, seeing little kids playing with Barbies that all look like Becky. It's like, like when I do think about that, it's kind of like, oh wow, yeah, I guess it is a lot of the same. And I guess, and I'm sure you two would agree with me and Red. I'd be curious about your thoughts on it. I think it's less of when it comes to identity politics, it's less that we want to keep everything to be the same and whatnot, and it's more so, yeah, we want to encourage there to be a diverse types of things. We just don't want it to be, you know, forced. We don't want it to be constantly pointed out because then it doesn't feel genuine and it doesn't. It feels like it has less of a positive effect if it's like a here you need this because it's different, rather than hey here's all these different things to expose you to and open up your mind and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, Red, I think what's your opinion on this? What I'm kind of thinking is that there's a difference between, you know, between building up this thing that we call identity politics and just recognizing that there's such a thing as a group identity.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think with what she said, it's nobody wants it to be forced. And I certainly would not, at least for me, like if I look at it through my eyes, I don't want to get a part in a movie because the character is white, if that makes sense. I want to get a role in a movie because I'm the best person to play that role. And that's what I would want for everybody else, regardless of what race they are. I think that's my main problem with identity politics. I want there to be diversity, but I don't want there to be diversity at the sake of making a shitty ass movie just so there is diversity. Because I don't think that's the way to go. And no one should be forced to make a shit movie with mediocre actors just because of diversity. And that's not to be racist and say there are not really good actors that are minorities. There really are. I just want the best people to get the job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love it when identity politics winds up getting itself so twisted and confused that it kind of does the opposite of what it would seem that it should do. The perfect example actually is the casting of the Ancient One in the Doctor Strange movie. In the comics, it's an old Asian dude, but they're like, you know, they get their weird identity politics hats on and like, well, we don't want to be stereotypical of Asian people, so instead of the Asian dude, we'll cast a white chick.
That's dumb.
What now? Like, no, I definitely don't want my race represented as being the biggest, coolest, most badass sorcerer on the planet, defender of all reality from forces unknown. It's like, no, I don't want my race represented as that at all, because that'd be stereotypical. It's like, come on, guys. You people are fools.
But at the same time, like if someone creates a character, okay, let's say I create a character and it's somebody from Afghanistan or Iraq. I don't want a white dude playing it. That's the character I created. Yeah. I own that character. I want somebody, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think there's a problem with doing it that way. If a character is black, you leave them alone. You don't make them white just or whatever, and you don't make a white character black just cause.
Just cause, yeah. You know, well, that gets right into this has been a huge thing with superhero movies in general, because they race swap or often, as in the case just mentioned, gender swap characters frequently. When it comes to the race swapping aspect of it, it's kind of like there was another YouTuber, Andre the Black Nerd. He was talking about this. There was controversy over casting Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Storm in the latest crappiest Fantastic Four movie, and he kind of brought up, is like, okay, is the race essential to the character or not? I'm like, okay, good point. Fair enough. And I can see the desire to want to do that sort of thing when you're doing all these superhero movies, because all the superhero, like almost all of them, were created in a time when all your characters were white, because that's what people did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they first the first prominent black characters were like Luke Cage, who was a big, dumb, strong convict, and a guy, characters who were literally named Black Panther and Black Lightning, just in case you didn't get the fact that they were black.
Yeah, why? I'm sorry to cut you off, Crystal, but like, what's wrong with, if a character is white, just let them stay white? Like, it doesn't matter. Why not create your own superhero character that is black man?
In general, that's exactly my point. You know, as a general rule, that's exactly my point. And there's always a stupid argument. I was like, well, there's all these other like characters already that are super popular and everything, and it's really hard to create new characters. Like, yeah, you know what? It is hard to create a new character, but once upon a time, no one heard of Batman.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like this is kind of the aspect of identity politics where I feel like it's so except for the cases where Hollywood productions are just trying to force something that shouldn't be forced, that should happen naturally. But I feel like this is one of those areas of identity politics where I feel like it's so based on personal preference that no one should really be told they're bad or wrong for holding their opinion. Like, there are people who are generally character peers and want to keep the character the exact same, while others, are more flexible. And it's like you say, gender. If the race isn't essential to the character, then why does it matter if they change races? As long as it's not an integral part to the character, it should be fine, having it change and whatnot. And it's like, I feel like that is such a opinion-based thing, because it's about creative properties,
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're talking about characters and what established characters and universes and whatnot. So it's like it's such a opinion-based. It's such a personal preference when it comes to thoughts on it, as well as the thoughts of the person making a film or product from based off that universe, where it's up to, like, it's going to be a different way if a character purist is writing a movie than it is going to be if someone who's more flexible is writing a movie for it. You know what I mean? It's like it's one of those things where it's like it kind of drives me nuts, because it's, I don't want to say it's non-issue, but it kind of is, because it's like, okay, it's kind of up to the person behind the project.
Yes.
If they're forcing it, then yes, definitely say something. But if it's just a simple thing of like, that's what they felt creatively they wanted to do, and the person who was best for that role doesn't necessarily fit the characteristics of the original characteristics of the character, then it's like, give it a chance. It's like, I think Faith pretty much said that when we were talking about the whole black actress put in the role of Ariel.
Right.
He said, like, no one should care. And it's like, the people who are calling out identity politics for caring about it should not care to show an example of, like, guys, you're saying the race shouldn't matter, so let it actually not matter and give the actress a chance, because the actress is actually talented. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now I'm curious, Red. Can you envision a way where there's a legitimate way to talk about the whole identity thing in the political sphere?
Could you elaborate on that? Exactly what you mean? Because we went from movies, so I just
right. Yeah, I'm trying to get back a little bit more into the political realm. And obviously, identity politics is a huge thing in the on all the political shows and the talking points and yada yada yada. It is a major factor in especially the Democratic candidates' campaigns. Is there is there a legitimate way to bring identity type issues into the political world that doesn't turn it into we're all made up of these different groups and we can't possibly understand each other, really dividing everybody up the way that the Democrats have kind of tended to do?
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. I would say the first thing that needs to happen is blacks and whites obviously have a different life experience. We just do, regardless of being individuals. It's just something we should all recognize and not be afraid of. But at the same time, if I want someone to listen to me, I'm not going to say, well, my race had this happen and your race did this to me. I don't think that's helpful when you're trying to get people to listen to your side. Right. I don't think saying white men are evil is healthy. And at the same time, I don't think going back at black men and attacking them for saying the same exact thing is helpful either. We need to understand that we all have different experiences and try to figure out a way to talk to each other without automatically saying, you're white, you're different, so I'm just going to treat you the same way as every other white person that I met. I don't think that's healthy. I don't think it's healthy to look back at the way America has always run and say, it's always been white men and you're white, so this is what it is now. We came a long way since then. I think we should be able to talk to each other as individuals and not look at each other like, oh, you're white or oh, you're black. So and immediately when those conversations happen that way, everyone's on defense and no one's listening to each other. They're just screaming.
Yeah.
What about focusing more on the different cultures? Because I think almost that's where real, actual legitimate divides, actual legitimate identity lies in, because there are different cultures that are associated with these various different groups. There is, and this is not to be monolithic by any means, but there is a certain thing that is called black culture, and obviously there are different types of black culture and everything. Obviously, it just says there are tons of different cultures that involve white people as well. You go to a small town in the South, it's going to be a very different culture than if go to Bangor, Maine, for example. There's going to be differences. Or if you go to San Francisco, it's extremely obvious set of differences there. Maybe focusing on that sort of thing. The fact that it's oh, okay, you're from this kind of area, this kind of background, as
regardless of what your race is.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, there are obvious certain cultures, certain areas in the country in which different people, different racial identities tend to live for a huge variety of reasons that we definitely don't need to get into here. But they do in any small geographical area does develop its own culture. I don't care where you are, but also to kind of recognize that, okay, yep, there are differences here, and what you're doing over there doesn't make any dang sense to me, and what I'm doing over here probably doesn't make much sense to you. But actually to go, okay, start from there. Start from the fact that, yeah, there are some differences, but I'm pretty sure we can sit down and have a conversation and actually find where the common ground is and then build. As opposed to, yeah, go ahead.
Even be allowed, because what you'll hear now is, what is it, cultural appropriation? I think people should be able to go into another culture and experience that and not have it be seen as a bad thing. Because the majority of people are not negative when they do those things. They're trying to understand in the only way that they can, and they might be trying to relate to you. and your culture. I don't necessarily think it's bad and something people should look at as a negative. Whereas, oh, okay, they're trying to understand me. And instead of just lashing out at those people, like, talk to them about your culture. Explain why, you know, you do things the way that you do. Explain the importance of it, the background, the history, instead of just lashing out. Oh, well, this is my culture. You don't have, that's stupid. Why would they listen to you? That's dumb.
Yeah, it's incredibly dumb. It's like, you know, and even I don't think most people, when they do things that stupid people call cultural appropriation, I don't think they're putting that kind of thought into it. I think they're going, hey, sombreros are fun. I'm going to wear one.
Right.
That kind of reminds me of I don't know if you guys remember, but it was that like image test going around on Twitter of like how much of like a millennial are you? And I remember it was so funny because the first thing it was like how much of a millennial are you based on what you've eaten? And like the first thing was like, have you ever had avocado toast? And I remember Lucas was like, I'm in trouble because I'm Chilean. Of course I've had avocado toast. It's part of my culture. It's a classic Chilean breakfast. But,
all I'm hearing from that is that millennials are the fault of Chile. That's what I'm hearing.
They're cultural appropriating Chile. But as I was gonna say, and to kind of just put my 2 cents, and I feel like another thing that would be a ideal situation to actually talk about like these things is actually talk about how complicated these issues facing certain demographics are, rather than just simplifying it to, oh, white man and just man's fault. Like those are the issues. Once we get rid of them, it is better. It's like, no, it completely simplifies the issues at hand, and it helps no one. I believe Red and I talked about this a little bit before the podcast she and I did while you were away, Ginger, and I can't remember specifically what it was we were talking about. We were talking about we were talking about pee-pees.
Yeah, you were talking about pee-pees and women issues.
But no, I think even before we went on the podcast, we were talking about how there are legitimately certain things that women have to deal with, but it's like they don't get talked about because it's always a non-issue people focus in on, like, oh my gosh, periods. Like it's either something like that they focus in on, or they oversimplify it so much that no real help is done because everyone's too busy pointing the finger at another person rather than actually talking about what the issue is, how can we solve it, what to do to actually enact change for it. It's the same when it comes to the Black community. You know, it's like, okay, why? I think I'm not sure about the current statistics on it, but isn't like absentee fathers like a big statistic in that?
Oh, huge. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like no, like some people are, but not enough people are talking about like, okay, absentee fathers, that is a issue, and it's probably contributing to these other things affecting the Black community. What can we do to fix that? How can we enact change for the better for the Black community? You know?
Stop making them feel like they're stupid and that they rely on the government for assistance, and stop giving them multiple paychecks every time they have another baby. They're not married to the government.
Right.
And the government takes the place of father figures in their children's lives. And I think that's a major problem. And it's not, I don't even think it's just a Black issue. I think it's also, it happens to be a city issue. Yeah. And there are Blacks and whites in the city. And that, because the living is cheaper, and it tends to, whether we like it or not, attract people that don't make a lot of money and don't have all those options. And they're left with nothing but the government. And I don't want people relying on the government, because the government is shit.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. It's not, at this point, it's not just a Black community issue. Like I have an absentee father, basically.
Right.
So.
Yeah, same.
Right. And I know within my extended family there are also there's at least one effectively absentee father, and yeah, it's that's definitely a real thing. Does it affect one community more than another? Yeah, but I think I think Red, I think it was you that said it, that it's kind of more of a city issue,
Yeah,
really, than it is a race issue. It just happens to be that one race is more in the inner city, but
right.
I don't think it's necessarily, strictly speaking, a black issue. It's very much an inner city issue. And well, then again, I get thinking about that LBJ quote that's where he said back as the civil rights movement was really gathering steam, he was like, well, fine, if these, and I'm going to be slightly politically correct here, more politically correct than LBJ, and saying, if these black people want to vote, we'll make sure they vote Democrat for the next 200 years. And by that he meant, it's like, we'll make sure they get all the welfare programs and everything, so they will just suddenly decide to love us.
Well, you know what else bothers me about identity politics? They're not only splitting us off into groups, they're splitting us off into subgroups. For instance, like women, okay, for women's rights, they're splitting us off as black and white women. No, we're fighting for women's rights, and that in court, that has all of us. It doesn't matter what your race is. This is a woman's issue. I shouldn't be looked at any differently than a black woman. Of course, her experiences may be different, but at the end of the day, women suffer the same type of issues if we're talking specifically about women's rights. We all face the same things regardless of what race we are. I don't like that. It makes people fight.
Well, statistically speaking, white women are more likely to be married, so therefore you're just under the thumb of your jackbooted husband.
What the fuck ever. You know what? You're going to have to interview my husband, and we'll see how that plays out. We'll see how that goes.
Red, remember, I'm also married. I know exactly how that goes.
I feel like, and that actually kind of brings up another point too, as Red started talking about, it starts to bring in infighting as well. Like Red, you too, Trinder, actually, you've seen how often on Twitter, how a woman will say a certain opinion, and other women will come in and be like, oh, there's the pick-me girls, there's the one trying to get all the men's attention.
Right.
It's like it identity politics breeds this environment where if you don't agree, then obviously you're trying to get the attention of the guy oppressing us, or you're under the thumb of the person oppressing us, and you're not actually saying what you think you're saying, or you don't actually think wholeheartedly of what you're saying because you're not allowed to think because you're oppressed, sweetheart.
Yeah.
Well, that's a major thing for pro-life women that we face, that we're being oppressed by the men in our lives, and we're doing what we think they want us to do. I don't want to kill babies. Okay, that's my preference.
So weird.
Yeah, it's weird because to me, when I hear that argument, it's essentially them saying I'm dumb and I don't know what's best for me, and I need to listen to what they say. I'm sorry, if you're blocking me, which 99% of these women do, obviously you know I'm fucking right. I don't care. You know I'm right.
And I'm
sorry, it happened.
Yeah, it is. I know you deal with that a lot because you kind of you wade into the fray quite intentionally very often, and do it quite well, I might add. And I always find that funny. The whole argument that it's like, yes, men are the one who really want to stop abortion. I'm like,
no, men are the ones who want to keep abortion going because they won't take responsibility for it.
Exactly. It's like it's like, okay, now you women who say that men, the pro-life is a men's thing, are also the ones who say that men are just all nasty pig horn dogs who just want to nail every woman they come across, and the consequences be damned. Do you not see how those two things don't go together?
They don't because they're liberated.
Yes, it's because of it's all the stories of men trying to get women pregnant to trap them into marriage. All those stories.
Yeah, because that works.
And the more I think about it too, sitting here now, it's like it's such an assumption about what goes behind the scenes as well. Because I I I recall like how often, like, don't get me wrong, a lot of opinions Lucas and I do end up sharing, which tends to happen because you you tend to agree a lot. If you are with a partner that, why am I stumbling over my words today? If you and your partner really fit well together, you tend to have a lot of thoughts and opinions that cross over and like you agree on. But it's like I can recall a lot of times where Lucas and I got very passionate and disagreed on our opinions because either he was more lenient on something than I was, or I was more lenient on something than he was, and it's like we disagree how often with our opinions. Like, yeah, we agree on a lot, but it's like, no, I'm not just kissing his ass when we happen to have the same opinion. That's just how it happened.
Well, see, that's the thing too. You are not allowed in the women's circle. You're not allowed to share an opinion with a man because that means you're just trying to appease him, or you're trying to, I don't know, have sex with him or something. I don't know. It's a really weird environment. Like the guy, if he agrees with you, he's trying to have sex with you. Like, I don't even know how that works. Maybe he could think the thing.
That's not just a woman's thing. This happens. That kind of thing happens with men too. I think the biggest, most obvious example is Stefan Molyneux crowd.
Yeah.
Basically, if you were at all polite, if you at all like defend a woman or something, you're a cuck, and they do this. They do the same thing with with the pick me girls. They're like, oh well, I hope she sleeps with you. It's like,
yeah,
it's like you guys
are weird,
are missing the boat just a little bit. It's like if you're trying to fight against the modern society that does emasculate men. That is 100. I think that is 100% true, and they're right to want to kick that square in the teeth. But the thing is, the right answer to that is not to go back to caveman, bonk the woman over the head with the club and drag them by the hair days.
What?
That's like that's not maybe the answer we should be looking for. I'm thinking more like the whole chivalric ideal. I like that better.
Isn't it a common thing too, where it's like if a man does something for a woman or his woman or anything, even most innocent of thing, another guy will be like, if he doesn't like it, will be like, oh, you're so whipped.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, it's part of being in a relationship. This is why you're single.
Exactly. This is why incels exist. Because they're acting like you. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to do with some of those people at all. Have either one of you followed Lauren Southern in the past? I'm just curious.
The name sounds familiar.
Yeah,
I don't know if I followed her, but I used to see a bit of her stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah, she's since stepped away from doing politics and everything. I bring it up because she was going through, I would say, a pretty interesting evolution in general, partially involving identity politics, but other things too. Because she started off very much, identity politics is stupid, it's not a thing. Then she kind of got involved with an identitarian crowd over in Europe. And kind of was like, well, actually, there is a little bit of something to this. And just kind of asked, well, if we're going to have all these other identity politics, why can't we have a white and cultural identity politics as well? But then it seemed like maybe she was even moving, just before she decided to kind of leave the political scene, it seemed like she was even asking more and in-depth questions. I just found that interesting. That put it this way, it would be worth going back and just finding a bunch of her stuff on YouTube and watching it in like sequential order, because it does kind of show how a modern millennial woman is working on trying to work through these issues without just swallowing any one particular narrative. And she definitely goes into some highly questionable directions at various points.
Yeah.
She does kind of like skirt, at the very least, skirt the edge of the alt-right at a couple of points. But
yeah,
that was fascinating, to say the least.
I feel like that. I don't mean to call it this network, but I feel like wasn't that quite a bit of a trend from the Blaze, or not the Blaze? What was that network he used to work for?
Oh, the Rebel.
Yeah, like I feel like that's because granted, I think Faith Goldie went all in. She went all in, but like that seemed to be a trend from the Rebel. It's they kind of started one way and then they really swung the other way. And it's like if what you said it's true, it sounds like Lauren kind of moved away from the alt-right, but it's like Faith Goldie,
she seems to have like just dove straight in, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Any Whoozin.
Yes, any Whoozin indeed.
Yeah.
So Red, what else have you got cooking anyway? I'm curious.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't know. What have you got any other plans for what you plan on doing online here in the future that you're willing to share, of course?
I'm looking to start my own podcast.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, and I have characters and everything.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That
one is Becky Mayo. That's the only one I'll give you. A typical white ally to the Black community, even though she knows nothing about it. You know.
Oh, of course.
Because she understands Black people so well.
Right. And she's going to talk a lot about her white privilege and.
Oh yes, that's fun.
Oh, that's going to be so much fun. Knowing you,
I have a blonde wig and everything. It'll be great.
Oh, I think you shared a photo of that once, and it was like, that is awesome. Like somehow you managed to check several boxes.
Yeah, but you know what? Also, one of the other characters. Well, one of the other characters I want to share, I did create a libertarian character too, because I think that it's important that everyone laughs and makes fun of every political, affiliation that you possibly can. I intend to make fun of them all.
Oh, that's going to be a good time.
Now you have to make sure.
MAGA supporters too.
Now you have to make sure, as the libertarian character, you have to say someone's not a real libertarian, okay?
Of course.
It is part of the rule book of being a libertarian.
It should almost be the segment, this week in Who's Not a Real Libertarian.
Yeah, and you know what? Because my teen kind of does TikTok, and she has a following on. Yeah, she has a following on there, and I'm like, if I can get this started, and it takes off. You can have a character on my podcast, but the only guidelines I gave her, since she's underage, she has to be so disguised that no one's going to recognize her. So what we agreed upon, she's going to be an Antifa member with like a bandana around her face.
Perfect.
Oh
boy. Yeah, I'm so excited for that.
That's gonna be a good time. That's for sure.
Definitely. And also just going back on to the identity politics real quick. And actually, this really ties into what Ginger you were starting to bring up about the whole. It ties into what you were saying about seeing Lauren Southern's like political journey and whatnot. What do you two think about the whole fact that identity politics kind of encourages this whole mentality of any mistake you have from the past is that's all it is, and you're done, you're canceled, you're basically cancel culture, which I feel like identity politics has a huge part in, because I don't know if either of you remember when Liam Neeson was basically talking about how in the past he had racist attitudes, but through a personal experience, he realized how wrong that was, and he was sharing that story so others could learn from him not to do that. And all a lot of people took from it was, oh my God, Liam Neeson was a racist? We need to cancel him. He's canceled. Canceled.
Oh, yeah. Go, Red. Would you go ahead on that?
I love comedy, so I'm not okay with anyone being, clap, 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 canceled.
Yeah.
So I just think it's stupid. People make mistakes. We're human. That's what makes us human. I think if somebody accepts responsibility for what they did, that says a lot more than the mistakes they made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One would think so. In a rational world, that would be accurate.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't think I've lived in one of those rational type worlds for quite a while now. I think that got left behind somewhere.
I think for the most part, the world's never been rational, because if you look back in history, there's how many events that are similar to the chaos going right now.
Well,
why do you think I troll so much? There's no point.
Right. But actually, Crystal, what you just said, that brings up something. I tweeted it out earlier today, and I shared it with Red because I thought it might come up on the show tonight. Was if you go, the more you learn about history, the more you see little parallels. And I've been, as part of trying to fill holes in my kids' education if they're not getting to the public school system, little things like American history. I thought it would be, I've kind of been listening to a lot of books and, passing that information along to the kids. And one of the things I just recently learned, listening to a book on the Civil War, and they kind of talked about how arguments and everything sort of changed as it got closer and closer to the Civil War. And the South originally had, made a lot of arguments in favor of slavery, but kind of acknowledging it as, okay, this is a bad thing, but it's necessary for this reason and that reason and the other reason. Basically saying it's a necessary evil.
Mm-hmm.
And then as they got closer, not that they knew they were getting closer to the Civil War, but you know what I mean. As we got closer to that time, they started being like, yeah, rah, slavery, it's the best thing ever, and we think everyone should do it, and actually arguing it as a positive moral good. I'm like, what does that remind me of? Oh,
pro-choice.
Exactly. How we've gone from safe, legal, and rare to shout your abortion. I'm like, that's interesting. And even what makes it even better is the pro-slavery people initially, like down in the South, they were very, you could say that they were initially much more free market oriented than the industrialized North, because the North was in favor of protective tariffs and everything. Whereas the South was like, well, we've got to buy all that stuff you're putting tariffs on, so that sucks. And so we hate your tariffs. But as you got closer to, again, the Civil War, they started making arguments about slavery, how this is actually a perfect representation of communism, where everybody's getting taken care of. Everybody's basic needs are being met. And saying the North, they're the bad guys because of wage slavery, this and that, basically using Marxist arguments against the industrialized North, which again gets you back to get you right back to how the same people who support abortion are the same people in supporting the rise of socialism in the country, and even connecting the two a little bit through the radical environmentalist movement.
Yeah, it's really interesting looking back in history how, because, and even in our sorry, excuse me, even in our friend groups, a lot of people say like, what has the world come to? And it's like, because I remember growing up too, like my bachelor would kind of say this to me as well, like the world was never sane. You look back in history, the world was never sane. And it's like now, and as I've gotten older, I've become somewhat of a history buff, and it's like, yeah, the world was never sane because like, and I can think of two specific examples that kind of, for me, confirm this. One, the whole, because if you, as you guys know, there's like animals in that are sort of associated with the different political parties. Like the elephants associated with the Republican Party and the donkeys associated with the Democrat Party. Do you know how those two came about? They were part of a smear campaign towards the parties. The elephant was from a political cartoon mocking the Republicans, and the donkey was because I can't remember who it was specifically. It was targeted towards one of the very few one of the first few presidents. It was targeted towards him, calling him a jackass. Like that's how the animals came to be. It came from smear campaigns. And another one too is people talk about how vulgar and gratuitous like society's gotten today and whatnot, which is true and fair. But I would like to point out that they found evidence of like old like stone rubble and whatnot that used to be walls and whatnot. I think from what used to be Pompeii, either Pompeii or old remains of Rome or whatnot, they found drawings of penises on the stone. Like they were doing phallic objects for how many years? Like this isn't a new thing. It's just more modern. Like it's not new.
This went really pervy fast there, Crystal. Jesus.
I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me save it. You see, they drew pee-pees on.
That's better.
Like I didn't know that was called.
But you know what I mean? It's like the world's always been what we complain it is today. It's always been that way. We're alive now to witness it ourselves.
The insanity changes.
Yeah.
The specific kind of crazy that is accepted in any given age changes. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Obviously, just to stick with what we were just talking about. Once upon a time, slavery was normal.
Yeah.
It was what everybody. It was what a lot of people did. Relatively few people seriously questioned it. Today, it's abortion, obviously. Once 50 years from now, we will possibly, if any of us, well, Crystal, you'll probably still be alive.
Hey,
I'm just saying.
you just killed me in this scenario.
I'm sorry. Women tend to live longer than men, so you know what? You probably got a good shot at that too, Red. You'll just be too senile to actually pay attention to any of it. But you'll be alive. There's that.
I'm senile. First, I was dead.
Well, at least you're alive. Anyway, 50 years from now, the world will probably be looking back, going, "How did our parents and our grandparents allow this to continue? What on earth was happening?" But they'll have some of their own kind of crazy.
Oh yeah.
That will either be fully realized at that point, or will just be coming, or will just be coming into vogue. Who knows? You know what? We may get rid of. We may wind up ending abortion just in time for pedophilia to be fully normalized.
Stop it! I will go on a rampage.
But we all see the signs.
Stop it.
And honestly, it scares me beyond. It scares me because there's not. I mean, this is going a little darker than I planned on, but I don't think there's not much lower we could go as a society. Once that becomes. I think there's a couple steps in it, but not much.
Don't dare society.
Don't
dare society to be gross.
No, I know. Oh, I'm not daring it. I'm afraid it's going to happen.
On a lighter note, I think you two can just picture me like with a cane, and it's like my grandkids are complaining about something. And I'm like, you little whippersnappers, you weren't around when this was a thing.
You're never gonna talk like that, Crystal. Be quiet.
Oh, I'm looking.
Now I'm gonna make a point to talk like that.
Thank you. Thank you. Me
you.
personally, I am looking forward to talking like that.
I talk like that now.
That's true. That's true. You're like, get off my lawn. I'm your daughter. Stop it. Get off my lawn. Oh, you have to mow my lawn.
See, I'm hoping I'm like the let's say that I'm not. Well, no, I could be. I'm gonna be the quote unquote cool grandma, and it's like I think of this meme that a friend of mine shared, and it's like this grandpa in an old folks home, like passing around printed out pictures of memes. So it's like I hope I'm like that cool grandma that's just sitting in a rocking chair on the porch, and I'm just like, you kids, you weren't around to see the time of the Steven Crowder changed my mind meme. They're like, what's the Steven
That's when memes were good. Your memes today just all they don't make any sense. It's just noise.
what's the Steven Crowder meme, Babsha? Well, you see, kids. You say something ridiculous and tell people to change my mind. When in actuality, you will never change your mind. It was brilliant.
And then they're just going to look at you and go, cool story, Grandma.
Yeah, but you know what? With her whole little skit there, I think I have a way to kind of combat identity politics, and that is through comedy. Because once comedy dies, we're done.
Yeah.
And that's why. Did you watch Dave Chappelle?
I have not yet. I've just heard all about it.
Not yet.
I mean, some of his jokes, I'll just flat out say I did not care for. I thought they were disgusting, but I support his right to do it. I think all jokes should be allowed. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily think you should.
Yeah.
But the day that I go against comedy is the day I pretty much die.
And we can't.
I just can't do it. No,
because if we do that, then you can't come back onto the show and talk about random things.
Well, someone had
like when I get suspended again for a freaking another Beyonce tweet. So
I don't even know what you're up to as far as the count numbers. I know I need 2 hands now.
10 or 11.
No, see, we'll just summon your ghost and just have a party. It'll be a special Halloween podcast, and here we have back our. Oh wait, sorry, I'm old in this scenario. And here we have back our old friend of the show, Red, for Beyond.
And then because I'll definitely be dead by the time you're that old. You can just like hold up my skull or something.
Well, just so you know, Ginger, because my youngest is getting ready for bed now, she said, if that's the guy with the bunnies, tell him I still want them.
Well, tell her
I do. Forget about your bunnies.
I do. We do have lots of bunnies. In fact, you can tell her that we just had baby bunnies.
They just had baby bunnies. Can you have one? Baby, brush your teeth. We're not discussing bunnies.
They're cute. They're cute and floofy.
Well, she did say for my birthday, so that'd be a long road trip, but
Well, that's okay. And remember, in a few months we should be heading in that general direction. So.
Oh yeah, that's right! Yay!
Yeah.
Crystal, are you going?
I want to try to. I gotta see how money is went out because I am not rich. Unfortunately, I wish I were.
Not rich either. Ginger has 6 kids. Think he's rich?
To get rich, I'd have to sell one of them to like a Turkish prison or something, and I'm told that's illegal.
Yeah, a little bit.
But again, between all 8 of us, there's actually 8 kidneys we could sell. So.
Wow. That's a lot of moolah right there.
I mean, if you're in a pinch,
I mean, I might need to go to India. I might need to go to a back alley in India to make that happen. But you know, just line us all up, get it all done in one shot.
Wow.
Actually, yeah, you could just go to the West Coast. I mean, human trafficking is terrible over there. They might have kidney sellers.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. Dude, you gotta be resourceful.
Okay, so what you're saying is I should go to LA, hang out with the Daily Wire crew. Then when I'm done with that, go find a disreputable organ salesman and sell one of my 4-year-old's kidneys.
No, yours.
I sell your own first, but
Oh, well, I figured
What?
just get everybody, then we can just bank it all.
Huh?
I mean,
You know,
Go away.
is somebody getting a kidney?
oh no.
And there goes Red. I think Red is dealing with daughter issues.
Yeah, bunnies. What
So-
happened?
or
Up the bunnies. Oh wait, no, she brought.
somebody really wants a bunny. And for the record, I was joking about the kidney thing. Anybody who happens to watch this,
No, really?
yes, jokes. They're supposed to be.
I was totally kidding too.
Crystal, you're not helping. Okay, well, and as it turns out, we were on. We are about at our hour anyway, so now is as good a time as any to wrap things up. Next week we're going to have it'll be her first time on, and we'll be using a pseudonym of some sort. Oh, hey, Red's coming back here. Looks like she dealt with whatever issue was going on, so let's bring her back in. Yeah, there she is. What happened?
My youngest had Mountain Dew today.
Oh.
Yeah,
I mean-
we usually don't let that happen, but we went out to dinner
Uh-huh.
and she begged me and I let her have it, and now she's all kinds of jacked up. I just got her to bed.
Just the screaming that was happening, I was like, was somebody taking the kidney joke seriously?
No. No, we're pretty good at jokes around this house, so no one took it seriously.
Whew.
Oh,
I was genuinely worried for a second, but actually,
I was scared too.
as it turns out, I was actually just wrapping things up here. Since
Okay.
we were at the hour anyway. But next week we're going to have on another mutual friend. It'll be her first time on the show, and
Joanne.
Yeah, shush.
I'm sorry. I was excited.
Being excited is good, but it's another mutual friend who has actually she's had an abortion and has come to regret it, and she's going to be on sharing her story with us next week. So if you're interested in the real human cost, the trauma that abortion causes in the people that actually seek it out, even you'll want to be here next week.
Oh,
So
that sounds really good.
I'm sure it'll be really good, and I'm really thankful that she agreed to come on.
Yeah.
So, and again, we'll get Faith scheduled to come back on as soon as possible. And yeah, we've got a few more good ones already lined up right in the hopper. So stay tuned, and until next week, keep fighting the good fight.
Bye.